Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, May 31st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amita Sharma in for Maya Tribulsi. Americans across the country took time today to commemorate men and women in uniform who made the ultimate sacrifice. KPBS reporter Melissa May was at the USS Midway for its Memorial Day service.
2020 will go down as an unforgettable year because of the pandemic. On this Memorial Day on the USS Midway, they honored those who served in what is sometimes called the Forgotten War, where over 30,000 Americans lost their lives. That Forgotten War is the Korean War, described by USS Midway Museum spokesman David Kuntz.
There was a conflict in the early 1950s in between World War II and the Vietnam War. But we should always remember those who fought in this war.
Retired Gunnery Sergeant Joe Kalla is a Korean War veteran and reflects on returning to Seoul, South Korea 69 years later as a hero.
Being a young guy, we knew we were there just to fight a war. We didn't know what we really were doing for those people. And now they know it, and they really appreciate us.
Kalla spoke of the service people who lost their lives during the Korean War.
For my comrades in the Marines, I'll never forget I think about them. A lot. They were good pals.
Marine veteran Ruth Osborne is grateful the USS Midway paid a special tribute to the Korean War veterans.
I wanted to come because I love the Korean veterans. I've been to Korea. I just love everything about it, and I want to be with the veterans that were still here and celebrate with them.
Osborne forged her mother's signature to join the Marines.
Because I love America. I went in Korea because I was a kid and I had to do something for my country.
A commemorative wreath-laying ceremony took place to honor all those who lost their lives serving their country. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Speaking on his first Memorial Day as Commander-in-Chief, President Joe Biden encouraged all Americans to fight for democracy.
Democracy, that's the soul of America. And I believe it's a soul worth fighting for, and so do you, a soul worth dying for. Heroes who lie in eternal peace in this beautiful place, this sacred place, they believe that too.
Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spent the morning at Arlington National Cemetery laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The president also spoke about the death of his own son, Beau Biden, who was an Iraq War veteran. Sunday marked 6 years since Beau Biden's death. With 2 national cemeteries, San Diego has long been a focus of remembering the fallen. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says those cemeteries were open today and things are slowly getting back to normal.
Jay Nash is a former Marine. His dad was in the Navy.
And I'm here to just to show my daughter what today is all about.
Nash's dad died before the COVID-19 outbreak and is buried on the East Coast. After a year of isolation, though, coming out to Fort Rosecrans was a chance for the generations to connect.
I think more so now than before COVID. I think we all took a step back and kind of are starting to appreciate some of the things that we lost during the COVID, and this is one of them.
Last year on Memorial Day, Fort Rosecrans and Miramar National Cemeteries were closed to the public. Ceremonies, including funerals, were severely restricted. This year, the restrictions were removed too late to plan the normal remembrances, says Cemetery Director Greta Hamilton.
The main thing that we did today was we placed a wreath in a private ceremony at Miramar and Fort Rosecrans in honor of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. We also, on Saturday, we placed flags at Fort Rosecrans as well on the graves there in the cemetery.
It's incredibly important that we take the time to recognize our fallen American heroes.
The National Cemeteries also held a virtual Memorial Day ceremony online. Burials continued throughout the pandemic. Loved ones were given the option to hold a ceremony after the restrictions were lifted, so attendance is expected to increase in the coming months. Parking was limited at Fort Rosecrans as people went from gravesite to gravesite, looking for their loved ones. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A smuggling boat was stopped off Mission Beach amid stepped-up patrols over Memorial Day weekend. The Coast Guard stopped the boat yesterday afternoon. 17 undocumented immigrants were turned over to U.S. Border Patrol agents. Law enforcement increased coastal patrols through today to stop human smuggling attempts. 2 recent incidents off of Point Loma and La Jolla led to 4 deaths. The community of La Mesa is commemorating the first anniversary of a protest against police violence and racial injustice. KPBS reporter Alexander Rangel takes a look back at the significance of the protest a year ago and also has a look at what lies ahead.
The pain of the movement, it's very understandable why there were protests that came about.
Following community protests and rioting over the murder of George Floyd and the false arrest of Amari Johnson by a La Mesa police officer, La Mesa Strong took on a new meaning.
Behind this fence is where Union Bank used to be before it was burned down in a fire last year caused by civil unrest. Now, a year later, all that's left is an empty lot and this tarp with messages reminding us of La Mesa's resilience.
Nadia Zamora owns the Pink Rose Cafe. Her store was looted the night of the protests.
I never wanted to drive down La Mesa Boulevard because what we experienced that night was horrific. It was like a scene out of a war zone, and emotionally it sent me down the hole.
Emotionally and financially broken, Zamora is coming out on the other side.
So had it not been for the support of the community and the encouragement that we received from them along with Union Bank, we would not have been here.
Ashley Twyman, a longtime La Mesa resident, says she would like to see growth that goes beyond the business sector.
But as far as actual growth goes, I don't know if I've seen it. And if it is, it's pretty quiet. You see a lot of supporters in the shops and stuff like that, but as a community, I don't know if it's really gotten any better.
Hannah Fletcher, another La Mesa community member, says there is still pain that remains behind the Black Lives Matter movement.
Hopefully understand the issue more of racial discrimination, police brutality, etc.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Today marks 100 years since one of the deadliest racist massacres in U.S. history. Hundreds gathered outside a church that was largely destroyed when a white mob attacked a prosperous black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in 1921. A 35 square block area was burned to the ground and an estimated 300 people were killed. On the centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre, a prayer wall was dedicated at Vernon African Methodist Episcopal Church.
So when we see this wall is not for us to remember the fights they fought. The wall is to give us the courage to fight the fights we still have to fight, to deal with economic justice, to deal with voter suppression.
President Biden is scheduled to visit Tulsa tomorrow. Today, he issued a proclamation for a day of remembrance, calling on Americans to, quote, reflect on the deep roots of racial terror in our nation and recommit to the work of rooting out systemic racism across our country. Today we mark the end of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month, and the release of 2 new reports from Stop AAPI Hate and the National League show the toll the pandemic and rise in anti-Asian hate crimes has taken on Asian American communities. Here's KPBS Race and Equity reporter Christina Kim.
I really remember that moment.
It seemed to be a day like any other. But then SDSU professor Nellie Tran felt a moment of fear she said she'll never forget. While driving through Poway, she saw 2 white men protesting, waving U.S. flags near a corner.
I was in the car, and as I was approaching the stoplight, it turned red, and I would be the first car at the stoplight. And I had this thought that maybe it would be better if I ran the light.
She ended up stopping, but the moment has stuck with her.
For the entire red light, I busied myself, looking at my phone and trying not to look over at them because I was afraid. And I almost felt lucky that nothing happened.
Tran isn't alone in her fear. According to 2 recent reports from the National Urban League and Stop AAPI Hate, 75% of Asian Americans feel the U.S. is more dangerous because they are Asian, a fear largely driven by the spike in the number of anti-Asian American hate crimes. Ann Saw of the Asian American Psychological Association is a lead researcher on both these studies. She found that 1 in 5 Asian Americans report racial trauma symptoms after experiencing a racist incident.
It could be depression, it could be anxiety, anger, decreased self-esteem, avoidance or numbing, intrusive thoughts.
In response to the rise in acts of racism, San Diego County has set up reporting hotlines, introduced a yellow whistle campaign to help people feel safe, and encourage people to report incidents. And the act of reporting is something researchers, like SAW, say can help communities heal.
We found that after reporting to Stop AAPI Hate's reporting portal, Asian Americans reported a reduction in racial trauma symptoms.
That's because a key part of reporting is just talking through the experience and taking control. Another way is seeking therapy, which according to the National Urban League study is a need that's not being met, with more than 6 out of 10 Asian Americans not having access to mental health resources. And that's something Nellie Tran is working on fixing. As a professor at San Diego State University, Tran is training the next generation of diverse therapists to bring their cultures into their practice.
We asked them to talk about their past experiences and not to be ashamed of experiences of poverty and migration, and to really think about how those experiences influence who they are today, and that they can be together with them rather than top down.
Last Friday, California Representative Judy Chu of Pasadena reintroduced legislation aimed at ending mental health stigma in the AAPI community. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
COVID-19 case numbers in San Diego County are still low, but health officials are reminding everyone that the pandemic isn't over. Today, the county reported 45 new infections and no additional deaths. While cases have dropped significantly, County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten says not enough people have been vaccinated to reach herd immunity. The county's goal is to fully vaccinate 75% of the population. Right now, we're at almost 73% of that goal. A reminder, if you want to set up a vaccination appointment for yourself or an eligible family member, you can find a location close to you at kpbs.org. Just click the vaccines link on our homepage. Today is the last day for small business owners to apply for a federal Paycheck Protection Program loan, better known as a PPP loan. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser says this round of lending was meant to give a better shot to small businesses owned by people of color and in lower income neighborhoods.
Charlie Johnson owns the local business Makello, which helps customers do energy analysis on their homes.
And I found that I was pretty good at educating people within my community about these technologies.
When the third round of PPP loans were made available in January, Johnson was ready.
I really honed in on finding banks that were there and claimed to be available to support minority and small-owned businesses.
He reached out to community development financial institutions, which are private lenders specifically focused on giving money to lower-income and minority business owners.
Within another day, we had an application underway, and within 2 weeks, we had a signed loan agreement, and within 2 weeks of that, we had funding.
That's exactly how the third round of PPP funding was supposed to work. It favored community financial institutions, which are meant to be better at targeting smaller businesses and minority-owned businesses. The point was to address the inequity in funding from the first two rounds, says Mike Sovakul, the Deputy District Officer of the San Diego SBA office.
The SBA realized that not all small businesses had current accounts with already established SBA lenders. And so in an effort to broaden the network, the SBA grew its PPP lending network beyond its normal SBA lending network.
In the first two rounds, San Diego County lenders gave 61% of loans to businesses in majority white census tracts and just under 12% to businesses in majority Latinx census tracts. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
This Memorial Day weekend marked the first national holiday where people could enjoy fewer COVID restrictions. Families arrived early to snag their spot on Mission Beach, though it does look different compared to last year when people weren't allowed to sit on the beach and the boardwalk was closed. It still wasn't as crowded as it was before the pandemic, but business owners say they've noticed things picking up lately.
I mean, you could show up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just, there'd be nobody here. And then just a few months ago, after everything opened up, really, the parking lot's filled early in the morning. There's people here already walking around at 9 o'clock. It's good again.
It feels good. It feels like normalcy is kind of coming back. We're slowly, getting back into our normal routine.
Businesses expect to get even busier in the summer when conventions return to San Diego. Residents in Escondido will have to continue to venture outside the city limits to legally buy cannabis. This after the city council recently voted 3-2 to continue to ban pot shops. KPBS's Alexander Nguyen has more.
Despite a majority of Escondido residents voting for Proposition 64 to legalize recreational pot in 2016, the City Council voted to move forward on continuing a ban on legal dispensaries within city limits. Escondido isn't alone. San Marcos has a similar ban. Marcelo Castillo is the owner of Hidden Leaf Collective, a medical cannabis delivery service.
So we help a lot of people with PTSD, a lot of people that have cancer, pre-op, post-op patients, and things like that.
Castillo hoped to open a store in Escondido, but understands the council's decision.
It really kind of put us down a little bit, but then also we had to kind of think about the perspective of why Escondido City had done that. And we were thinking, well, it is kind of a good benefit for that particular city in some areas too, because of the high crimes and things like that.
According to the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank, violent crimes have neither increased nor decreased significantly in places where cannabis is legal. But there is some evidence teens are using pot more post-legalization. A recent Sandag report shows that 57% of teens arrested in 2019 tested positive for cannabis, a 19-year high. That's the reason why Daisy Ponce, a junior at San Pascual High, told the council at its May 19th meeting she does not want dispensaries in the city.
I get to see a lot of kids be intoxicated in class, and it's not a good feeling to have one of those things in that class. Adding cannabis dispensaries in Escondido will only normalize marijuana even more.
But by continuing with the status quo, City Council member Consuelo Martinez says the city is at risk of pot proponents putting the measure on the ballot. She was one of 2 dissenting votes.
I see that dispensaries will eventually come to the city of Escondido. For me, it's really an issue of, do we want to get ahead of that issue and have a say in how many of those dispensaries it would exist in our city?
Castillo says the council also missed an opportunity for added tax revenues and jobs.
And it is sad because it will bring a lot more people into the community to spend their money inside that particular city, and it will increase the taxes of it.
But the majority of the city council was not swayed by that argument.
I don't care about tax dollars from cannabis.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
In addition to Escondido and San Marcos, Vista also once had a ban, but in 2018 there was a citizen initiative that made dispensaries legal.
The heat is building into portions of California here over the next couple of days, but some of the coastal regions are still going to have to deal with that morning fog and cloud cover, and we're going to be staying dry here. It doesn't look like we're going to get a whole lot in the way of really any significant rain chances in the days to come. Temperatures for tonight dropping off to 60 degrees in Oceanside, Ramona getting down to 53, Borrego Springs only dropping off to 70 degrees for that overnight low. And again, moving through the overnight period, you'll notice that onshore flow kicks in some cloud cover and likely some dense fog to develop through the early morning hours, but that does clear as we head into the afternoon, and temperatures, boy, they're going to be soaring here, but likely for more of the interior sections and likely for central and northern portions of California. That's where the heat is really going to get locked in, but we'll see a warm up in the deserts as well. Temperatures are going to be well into the triple digits here over the next couple of days. Near the coast, though, we're sitting in the low 70s. A little bit further inland, we do get up into the 80s. El Cajon getting up to 82 degrees. Ramona, 84 degrees for your daytime high on Tuesday as you may be heading back into the office. And the sizzling heat only continues for your Wednesday, the middle of the week. The heat gets locked in here, and we're going to be talking about potentially some record-breaking heat in spots over the next couple of days. Near the coast, a little bit of a warm up here, but it's still pretty cool. Low to mid 70s out there for your highs over the next couple of days. Further inland, you'll notice a little bit more of a warm up here up into the low to mid 80s for the middle part of the work weekend as we head into your next weekend. Meanwhile, in the mountains, temperatures generally sitting in the low 70s through Wednesday, and after that, we'll see a little bit of a cool down here back into the upper 60s by the time we get to Friday and Saturday. But again, as I mentioned, the heat really is on in the desert. Check out these temperatures. We're getting up to 104 for your Tuesday, 107 for your Wednesday, and that triple-digit heat finishes off the work week and as we head into the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
A North County farming family of Japanese descent has overcome legal barriers, internment camps, and most recently, the pandemic. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us about the Yasukochi family and how their farm has survived to this day.
Donald Yasukochi and his daughter Brienne walk the farmland that once belonged to his parents and grandparents.
We're growing corn, we have artichokes, asparagus, we have raspberries, blueberries, strawberries.
The land that now grows a variety of fruits and vegetables has a rich history that began in Japan. Donald Yasukochi's grandparents were farmers in Japan before they decided to leave their farm behind and head to America.
When they came over, they weren't just welcome with open arms.
The California Alien Land Law banned aliens ineligible for citizenship from owning land. But not everyone agreed with the law that worked against immigrants, and generous American farmers gave the Yasukochis a chance. They were able to settle in Oceanside in 1924, where they began dehydrating chilies.
Here's a picture of my grandfather, and he is the one standing on the truck, and these are the dried chilies. He was known as the king of the chilies.
But everything the Yasukochis built came to a halt after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Here is the actual bombing of the mighty USS Arizona.
If you had a Japanese face and you had Japanese ancestry, even though you're an American citizen, they interned you. It put you in jail.
Yasukochi's grandparents were separated from each other along with their children and sent to internment camps in New Mexico and Arizona.
Most of the Japanese American families lost everything, and they had to come back. When they were released, I think they gave them $25.
When the Yasukochis returned to their farm, they were relieved to find that Mr. Gray, a generous Escondido school teacher, had taken care of their land.
My mother used to run us out to Escondido, and Oceanside to Escondido is not 20 minutes like nowadays. It was like 2.5 hours in a back road, and it took forever to get out there. But we had to go see Mr. Gray. We had to take him our fresh corn. My mother was just always hey, you know what? We're giving back. We have to give back.
The Yasukochis expanded into Carlsbad and began growing and selling wholesale tomatoes.
Semi-truckloads full of tomatoes.
In the late 80s, Yasukochi family farms transitioned from wholesale to growing a variety of different fruits and vegetables to sell in farmers markets. Now into the fourth generation of the Yasukochi family, Brienne Yasukochi had to help the family farm overcome a new hurdle: the pandemic.
When the pandemic hit, we were like, okay, the farmers markets are closing down, we might have to shut down because we don't have a viable source of income.
With pallets of fresh produce, the Yasukochis had to get creative and decided to promote their community-supported agriculture boxes. The CSA boxes come stocked with fresh produce and are delivered for free.
They saw it online, on Facebook, and I don't know what they do, Instagram, and my daughter was doing it. And before you know it, the phone was ringing off the hook.
At a time when stores were low on food, the CSA boxes went viral and the Yasukochis had to meet the demand. But the boxes didn't only help the Yasukochi farm stay in business. They also gave nearby farmers a chance to include their produce in the boxes.
We work, I would say, with 5 to 7 different farmers throughout the week, depending on the season and what they have. And so giving them a place to sell their produce while at the same time giving the customers the connection of where the produce is coming from has been a win-win for everybody.
The CSA boxes range from $25 to $35 and include free delivery anywhere in San Diego County. Customers can also add locally grown flowers, olive oil, and jams. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.